So Elon Musk responded to my tweet, which drove the left even further crazy, by saying this is messed up. You bet it's messed up. First up is the big news that Elon Musk is going to purchase Twitter after all. Now, the left has gone crazy. They've already been crazy in terms of their suppression and censorship of the speech of their political opponents. They've been doing it on Twitter, they've been doing it on Facebook, they've been doing it on Google, which owns YouTube, and they had the support of the President of the United States in pushing for this mass censorship on issues ranging from election integrity to personal corruption about Joe Biden, namely the Hunter Biden laptop scandal, to questions about controversial COVID policies and the controversies associated with vaccine mandates and mask mandates and things like that. So on top of that, you also had restrictions on discussions related to the transgender extremist agenda. So they would get into any topic necessary in order to protect themselves from criticism from their political opponents, the left would. So the idea that Elon Musk, who is specifically and vocally committed to free speech on Twitter, is going to take over Twitter is something that has sent the left into a rage. The Biden administration already is on record and has taken action to suppress free speech, an attack on our First Amendment. But on top of that, they've come up with this new scheme through the Department of Homeland Security that's scaring the heck out of pretty much every sensible American. It's this board for disinformation governance. Is that what it is? Or governance of disinformation?
Disinformation Governance Board.
Disinformation Governance Board, I'm being told. Well, doesn't that sound something out of George Orwell? Orwell had the Ministry of Truth. And that's the trend of the discussion here. Everyone's calling it the Ministry of Truth. In fact, it's a censorship board. It's designed to stop the dissemination of speech this government, the bureaucracy, the deep state doesn't like. In fact, Jen Psaki confirmed that. He said, we want to stop this information from getting across the country. That's censorship. So never before, at least in modern American history, have you had the federal government committed to censoring the thoughts of every American citizen as expressed on big tech, the social media platforms. And of course, in order to have this censorship board work, how is it going to operate? It's going to have to monitor your social media posts. They're certainly going to be monitoring my social media posts and other prominent critics of the Biden administration and corruption in general here in Washington, D.C. And sure enough, Elon Musk makes this announcement, or the announcement's made about Musk's purchase of Twitter. Within 2 days, the Biden administration announces this outrageous, as Senator Hawley called it, monstrosity attacking our First Amendment rights. And the left is calling for widespread government regulation of content on social media. They want to monitor and censor you, dear Americans. You. And thankfully, Elon Musk, and as I said before, I don't know what his politics are generally speaking. He said he, for instance, supported Obama, and that the Democratic Party, as far as he's concerned, has gone way to the left of him. But the point is that there are people like Elon Musk who may have liberal views on many issues, but there's a difference between liberalism, I think it's fair to say, and this sort of extreme leftism, the totalitarian communism that's on the rise in our nation. And I highlighted that this censorship push, this Ministry of Truth, is a threat to our civil liberties. And it's interesting because I posted this is the following tweet I posted on Twitter. So Ministry of Truth was trending for obvious reasons on Twitter, and trending means a lot of people are tweeting about it, and Twitter makes note of that on the platform. And I tweeted, Ministry of Truth is trending because Biden administration appointed a radical leftist, which is true, to run a censorship board in the Department of Homeland Security a few days after Elon Musk's purchase of Twitter announced. So a very straightforward tweet, and it's those types of tweets that drive the left crazy because they really can't argue with it. The person that and I'm going to talk about the person is going to be running this in a little bit. So Elon Musk responded to my tweet, which drove the left even further crazy, by saying this is messed up. You bet it's messed up. You bet it's messed up. And who's the person that they've going to have run this censorship board? Her name is Nina Jankowicz, and she's a radical leftist. She's kind of an unusual person, to put it nicely. There's lots of videos of her singing about censoring disinformation, so you can look those up if you want to have a little bit of fun. But the disturbing part is that she boasts, for instance, and this is another tweet I highlighted. Well, there's one tweet where, and I highlighted it, she's talking about in a statement she made to the media or to an outlet, a news media outlet, that Trump being knocked off of Twitter and otherwise deplatformed from other social media platforms was he was kind of like a weed tree that had been lopped off. That's how she referred to Trump being canceled on Twitter. She talks about the fascism of Trump supporters. So she obviously hates anyone who's associated with Trump. She's quoted in Chinese social media, actually in a Chinese media publication, about in attacking Trump for raising questions about the Wuhan lab origin of the coronavirus. I highlighted that her statement to Chinese media attacking Trump. And you know what Twitter did? They suppressed it because they said I was linking to a Chinese state media site. I mean, that's the irony of what Twitter's doing. They're censoring my tweet about the top official in the Biden administration who's going to be censoring us. A statement that she made to China-controlled media. And on top of that, the DHS, in the meantime, is letting through, it's not even a slow motion invasion, it's a pretty darn quick invasion of our nation. By illegal immigrants on our southern border. Hundreds of thousands getting through. Millions since Biden's come into office. And what are they going to focus on? Coming after you. And believe me, there are two issues they need to get done here. They need to suppress Elon Musk's Twitter platform through regulation and threats and intimidation to make sure he doesn't turn back on the switch for freedom on Twitter. And they also need to intimidate, harass, and target and spy on their political opponents, because guess what this year is? It's an election year. One of the proposed things that this censorship board's going to look into is Russia disinformation. Well, guess what? The left considers Russia disinformation anything critical of the Biden administration. So that's a catch-all term. Frankly, the phrase disinformation should be translated immediately in your head to free speech. So when they say we're trying to combat disinformation, what they really mean to say is we're trying to combat free speech. So what is Judicial Watch doing? Well, we've already uncovered previously, because we know how this game works, because we've been victimized. I've been directly censored as a result of government intervention with big tech. Judicial Watch has been directly censored as a result of government intervention with big tech. We have the documents. State agencies who didn't like what we were saying about election integrity and calling them out for their failures to clean up election rolls and such, they got YouTube to take down one of our videos, specifically there. It's California. Even Iowa, which is run by Republicans, went after us. So this is a bipartisan issue. I mean, you've heard about Speaker McCarthy this week. joke, and he's not speaker yet, that's right. Minority Leader McCarthy, shortly after 1/6, he was caught on tape talking about conservative Republicans he didn't like, and I don't know if he was joking or not, but he was seemingly pretty direct in saying, I wonder if Twitter could take down their accounts too. So don't think it's just Democrats who want to suppress speech. The temptation to suppress the speech of people you don't like or politicians don't like goes across party lines. But let's be clear here. The Democratic Party, unfortunately, and I try not to be partisan here because that's not what Judicial Watch does, but it's a factual analysis, is that the Democratic Party has made it a core element of its governing strategy, and the Biden administration specifically, with the support of Congress, to regulate and censor our speech. So that's an attack on your civil liberties, my civil liberties. It's an attack on our Constitution, which protects our First Amendment rights. Not only to speak out on political matters, but to petition our government. So when you're criticizing the government and you get censored, you're criticizing government policy, you get censored as a result of the government working with big tech. And of course, big tech doesn't necessarily have the right to censor you either. That's a violation of your rights. So the Biden administration is on the side of violating your rights. They're going after Elon Musk, and you can bet they're going to continue to try to escalate the censorship because through government abuse, because that's what they've been doing repeatedly almost every election in the last several elections, abusing the powers of government to oppress their political opposition during election years so they can either retain and or obtain power. They did it in 2012. Obama used the IRS to go after his political opposition so he could be more easily reelected. They did the same thing in 2016. They used other government agencies to go after his political opposition because he wanted Hillary there, namely Trump. Hence the Russia spies and the illegal Russia Spygate smears and the illegal spying on Trump. In 2020, they suppressed information about Hunter Biden, hid it from the American people, changed the rules in a way that was unlawful and anti-constitutional. And now, just on the eve of the next election, they come up with a censorship board run by a left-wing extremist who's partisan. I mean, and she's not only partisan, it's like this crazed government, we got to do what the government wants. So when the government was against wearing masks, this person who is going to be running the censorship board was all on board suppressing ads promoting masks, or at least the purchases of masks. And then once it became clear that the government wanted you to wear masks, she was in favor of monitoring and stifling speech of those who opposed mask mandates. So it's just the government. It's the government. The boring, this is the problem with this totalitarianism. It's usually kind of boring. It's like, oh, what's the latest government policy we're not allowed to talk about? It's not even interesting censorship. It's so obvious and childish. So these are dangerous times for our republic. And I mean, the good news is that Musk is buying Twitter. The good news is he has a seeming commitment to free speech, which should be encouraged. The good news is the left sees this as a strategic threat to their efforts to control big tech, and thereby control our speech. So Judicial Watch has launched Freedom of Information Act request already. I think it was announced, when was this deal announced? When was this? It was announced on Wednesday. We got FOIAs out immediately on Wednesday and Thursday for records about this unprecedented censorship board put in place by the Biden gang. So I'll let you know what we find. There's going to be more coming. There's going to be more censorship coming. I encourage you, if you're not, and I've always said this, you shouldn't leave these platforms even if they are unfriendly. And what I think is very interesting, and I encourage you to follow Judicial Watch on Twitter and participate in the conversation on Twitter in addition to other social media, if that's your cup of tea. I know some people don't like doing social media generally, so I don't want to make you do it if you don't like it. But after Musk it was announced that Musk was taking over Twitter, all of a sudden, the major conservatives on Twitter, all their accounts got huge bumps in followers. Now, I'm a major voice on Twitter. I had just before this, it was 1.29 million followers. And I used to have around 1.4 million, but Twitter purged all of about 225,000 of my followers when they knocked Trump off. So it was the great purge of conservatives that time. And so I've been slowly building them up since I've been back on Twitter. And just the last few days, I think I got 100,000 more followers. So I'm now at 1.4 million. That takes typically 3 to 4 months to get 100,000 followers, new followers on Twitter. And I got those in 3 days, which suggests to me that Twitter being taken over by Musk resulted in something happening at Twitter that turned off suppression of conservative accounts and our followers. And it's not just me who had big bumps. Every major conservative voice on Twitter had big bumps. I know the Judicial Watch account had a big bump. I don't think it was as big as mine. And some of the Fox News people and, other big conservatives on Twitter. Because, there aren't that many. There aren't that many. And so we are winning. At least this week we're winning, right? But as you can see, there's a big counterattack. The Ministry of Truth by Joe Biden. And we're not going to stand for it. We're obviously doing the FOIAs, and we're going to research other legal means to try to protect our First Amendment rights. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and like our video down below.